Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are going to have a lunchtime of chat in celebration of Whole Women's Week. My name's Christina Lewis, and I'm absolutely privileged to be talking to women from all over the region, amazing women, about their experiences and their careers and their journeys up to this point. Today we're joined by Louise Cheeseman, who's Managing Director of Hull Trains. She's just celebrated her 20th anniversary in the rail industry. She's a Hull lass, born and bred through and through, and she's had some incredible experiences nationally and internationally as part of her job in the rail industry. So Louise, thank you so much for joining us. It's brilliant to have you here.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And if it's all right, I'd just like to start, I guess, right at the beginning. So 20 years ago, you joined the rail industry as a guard. So what I'm really interested in is how did you get to that point? What attracted you to the industry?
Oh gosh, one simple reason, and that was the money. So take you back a step. I was working as a cashier in a bank. I had two girls who I was bringing up by myself. The girls went to a local school in Hull, and I went to one of their open nights, and their teacher said to me, "You do know that your daughter's really bright. She's going to go to university, hopefully." And the look of horror on my face, because I left school at 16 with no qualifications, really, odd O level at the time as it was. But I never got the chance to go to university because I was one of three children. My two brothers went and did great things, and my father was of the opinion that I would get married and have a family. So at the time it was you leave school and get a job, and I got a job in a bank. When the school told me that my daughter was bright and was going to go to university, I panicked because I had no money. My job was my only income, and I really wanted them to have the best. I wanted them to be able to achieve whatever they wanted to achieve, and if that meant going to university and funding them at university, then I would have done anything. So every Wednesday night at the time, the Hull Daily Mail did a job advert special, and I used to run out every Wednesday night after work, get the Hull Daily Mail and open it up. And one particular night there was a half-page spread about conductors for a company called Northern Spirit, which is what Northern Rail is now. And I didn't see anything else other than what they got paid. And I was like, they got paid double what I was earning as a bank cashier. So I stupidly applied, well, I wasn't stupid now, but at the time stupidly applied. And my parents were absolutely horrified. They was like, what are you doing? You've got this great job in a bank, nice smart clothes, and you're going to work on the railway. So anyway, cut a long story short, we went, if you applied, you got the chance to go to an assessment day. And I went one Sunday to this assessment day. Never forget it, was in Sheffield. I've never been on a train in my life before, so I had to get a train to this event. And it was lots and lots of different little tests. And every time you did a test, if you passed, you stayed. And if you didn't, you were sent home. There were 25 of us. I was the only girl or a woman there. Everyone else was male. And as the day wore on, there were fewer and fewer people left until the end of the day. There were 4 people left. I'll never forget, there were 3 men, obviously, and myself. I got called in to have an interview, and that was a final stage. And the interviewer said to me, well, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is you've come top of the tests. I was like, oh, wow, I've never come top of anything in my life. But the bad news is we're not going to offer you the job because you're too posh. And no daughter of mine, I would ever want them working on the railway because the mess room environment is just not something for a lady. And I was just horrified. I'd never experienced anything like that before, because I've always been of the opinion that, you get a job fair and square. And so we had 15 minutes debating the rights and wrongs of whether I should or shouldn't get the job. And in the end, I think just out of desperation, he said to me, okay, he said, I'll put you forward, but I'll give you 3 months. And 20 years later, here I am. And what I would say is it's been amazing. I wish that my only regret is I never found the railway industry sooner. It's given me a fantastic career. Both my girls got really good degrees. So I'm incredibly proud of them. So many positive things have come out of that. What could have been a negative experience, but me being me, I'll battle to the end. And I got a job as a guard on the railway, and I was only the second woman at Hull to become a guard. The uniform didn't fit me properly. There was a big bulge of material at the front of my trousers. Then there wasn't a designated ladies toilet. So I had to go onto the concourse. And I know people, viewed me with suspicion when I first joined, but I have an amazing group of friends now who, still work on the railway, many of them at Hull. And yeah, I can honestly say it was the best thing I ever did. And here I am today.
And here you are. So 2000, so that was 2000, wasn't it, when that...
January 2001 was my first day on the railway.
Yeah, so if we think that was only 21 years ago when that man said, oh, I'm not sure this is the job for you, you're too posh, I'm not sure I'd want a daughter of mine working in this job. Have you seen attitudes change during that time? Are there more opportunities for women? Is there more diversity now?
I think there's been a massive change, certainly on the front line. So if you look at Hull Trains, for example, now we are slightly different at Hull Trains, but half our drivers are women, half our train drivers are women at Hull Trains. Certainly on the front line, women in the industry have come on a million miles in only 20 years. There are a much higher percentage of women in the industry. I think the area that we still struggle with in the industry, and I think you'll find this in a lot of industries, is at that senior level. So up until 2 years ago, I was the only female managing director of a train operating company. That's changed now, and there are more MDs in rail that are women. But we still do have a much lower percentage of women. When the higher up the food chain you go, the fewer women you see, and that's something we're trying to change. There's a group called Women in Rail that have done an awful lot of work to try and encourage women, starting at grassroots level at schools. I go out and speak in schools, and it's something that, I don't think a career in rail is particularly well marketed for women, but we have come a long, long way. There is now a uniform for women, by the way, which fits very nicely.
That's good. So what advice, if there are young girls and women who are wanting a career in the rail industry, what advice would you give them? Or actually, what advice just in general, not even particularly about the rail industry, but just generally?
I think the one thing I'd say to people is be curious. There are industries that, the rail industry just isn't just about driving trains and being a guard, or blowing a whistle. There's so many things that sit behind it. So, planning, performance, accounting, booking tickets, all of that good stuff goes on in the background. People don't see that. It's a bit like an iceberg, you only really see the little top bit sticking out. Be curious. So, if you have friends and you wonder what they do for a living, and then start asking a few questions, it's amazing what you find out. And in a way, yes, I fell into rail because of the financial side of it. But, I learned, I started asking questions. I started asking people what they did and how does a train get from A to B, what goes on in the background. And I soon became aware of a lot of other roles in rail. And that's really how I came to, I was a guard for 7 years, but I soon started to realise there were other roles within rail that I was interested in. And that's how I really went into management. But equally, I would say the same applies to any career. Be curious, ask people what they do and what they enjoy about the job, and you'll be amazed that you'll find some little nugget that says, oh, I'd be quite interested to know a bit more about that. And you know what, when you ask people, they're so keen to talk about what they do. I love talking about what I do and what really floats my boat, and you'll find that with a lot of people. If you take an interest in them, they love it. They love to talk to you about what they do.
Yeah, it strikes me it must be incredible teamwork, as it is in any job, but I think particularly in your job, you must, if anything goes wrong, you must be such a tight, incredible team.
And I think the other part to that, which makes that even more so, is that we don't work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And if you ask my husband, I think he thinks I work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, because it sometimes feels that way. But we are a very close-knit team, and things don't always go right. Often there'll be things go wrong, and everybody knuckles down and helps each other. And as I say, I've been in the industry 20 years, and I've still got some very dear friends who I met on the first day that I joined the railway. there is no real, yes, I've got a badge of an MD, but you know what, I'm just an ordinary person that's here to help my team to deliver a great service to the people of the region. And I think I don't think there's many industries where you could come from working in a relatively ordinary job like McDonald's to becoming a very senior manager. We don't look for qualifications, we look for willing. I say skill, will. If you've got the willingness to learn and you really show an aptitude, we'll take anybody. You know, we're not looking for someone who's been to Oxford or Cambridge. We want people like myself. I didn't go to university, and I had a relatively ordinary education, but I was determined. I was so determined to show certain people who said I'd never make anything of my life, and myself too. And if someone comes to me and they've got that determination and that willingness to learn, you know, we will take people from every walk of life. And the rail industry is one of the few businesses, I think, now where we do that. So I would recommend anybody who's got an interest in rail, you know, to have a look at what opportunities there are, and there are a lot.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily something you think about. We hop on a train, we go from A to B. You don't actually stop and think about that huge infrastructure. Massive. Like you said, we just see the iceberg, don't we? Not everything else that's on. And huge. You know, we now do apprenticeships. So you know, if you're not quite sure what you want to do because you don't really know what the rail industry consists of, the rail industry does some amazing apprenticeships. You know, Network Rail have a college in Doncaster and York where you can go and learn all about the track and the signalling, and we have, you know, engineering apprenticeships. We're keen to get young people into rail because it's got a great future, and you can go as far as you want. You don't have to become an MD like me. You know, you can stay on the front line. I loved it on the front line. I loved talking to people and made some great friends with some of the customers I still keep in touch with now when I used to be guard on the train. So you can go as far as you want to go. You know, that's absolutely up to you. And but the rail industry gives you that opportunity. And I do have to ask you, Louise, I suppose on your journey you've never come across that gentleman from the interview again, have you?
No, it's funny because I've told that story to a few people, and yeah, I can remember what he looks like it was burnt on the back of my brain. I'll never forget him. He had black slick back hair. I can't remember his name, but I'd love to meet him now. Yeah, I think actually what he said to me probably was what spurred me on. You know, it was like, I'm going to show you, you know, I can do it. So
we've got a lot to do for in a roundabout way then.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, I know we've spoken before and you've told me some of the amazing experiences you've had as part of your role internationally, nationally, globally. Would you mind just talking a little bit about some of your most memorable moments up to now?
So I think the first that really strikes after getting the job in the first place was one Monday night when I got a phone call when I was in the kitchen of my house, and it's like you remember where you were when you found out Princess Diana had died. And I was making my tea in the kitchen and I got a phone call to say, we need you to go to London. The Olympics was being prepared, and the transport proposal for the Olympics was the Docklands Light Railway, which, if anyone doesn't know, it's a driverless system, so it's quite unique. And it was a really key part of the Olympic preparations. It was the mode of transport that was going to service all the different locations for the Olympics, so the Olympic Park, Greenwich, and various other places. So the DLR was really key to the success of the Olympics, and unfortunately the preparation wasn't going as well as it should have done. So they asked me if I would go to London and assist them, and I just said, no, I'm not going to London. Why? I've never been to, I think I've been to London once in my life, and that was to take my daughter to see the Millennium Dome, and that was in 2000 before I even joined the railway. And they would say, well, we're not actually asking you, we're telling you. So one wet Sunday afternoon with a heavy heart and a big suitcase, I went to London, and again, you know, it was one of those iconic moments for my career. What I saw and what I experienced in London, which started off as a 3-month secondment, ended up being just short of 4 years. Being in the Olympic Park when Oscar Pistorius won his medal, you know, experiencing some of the things that I saw in London when I was there was just unbelievable, and I'll never forget it. I've got a memory box at home with all my lanyards in it and all the memorabilia that I got from working with the Olympics, and then get invited to the VIP celebration events for being part of the Olympics. And as a result of that, there were a lot of things we introduced to the Olympics, which were quite unique to transport. And I was asked to go out to Sydney and share some of those successes, if you like, some of the initiatives. So I got the chance to fly out to Australia, to Sydney. That was just unbelievable. Again, you know, another experience. No, I'm not doing it. Yes, you are. But I absolutely love Australia. You know, I love the whole experience. And for anybody that's ever been to Dubai, because I know a lot of people have been to Dubai, the Dubai Metro, there's a few things on there that I was like, oh, I did that and I did that. So Dubai was one, Sydney was another, the Olympic Games was another. Having the opportunity to live in London for 3.5 years. At first, it was me being lacking in confidence and learning to live in London on my own, in a flat, getting myself around London using the underground and everything. By the time I left, it was just hopping on and off tubes and buses and Boris bikes and all of those things, which, you know, if you told me 10 years ago, you know, that I would be able to do that, it was the most enormous boost to my confidence. And again, it's an opportunity that I never ever thought I would ever have. So, you know, who would have thought, you know, joining the railway as a guard, you'd get the chance to go to Sydney by London Olympic Games. So yeah, and then, you know, being asked to come back and become the managing director of Hull Trains, which, you know, was something that I'd looked across at Hull Trains when I joined the railway originally and thinking, wow, look at those trains there in London and the ladies with big brimmed hats. And to think I'd ever have the honour of being the leader of the business is just, even to this day, it never stops overwhelming me that I am so honoured to be a leader of this business, because I'm very proud of Hull, incredibly proud of my roots. Yes, I've worked all over the UK, in London, in Manchester, in Newcastle, all over the place and abroad, but Hull will always be my home. And I've got some strong roots in Hull, and you know, I want success for Hull Trains because the people of Hull and the region deserve that. They deserve good links to the capital, and if I can give them that before I move on to whatever my next role is, then, you know, I'd be really, really delighted.
Well, obviously a lot of people would say that you and your story is incredibly inspirational, and you yourself are an inspirational person, but who over the years has inspired you, not necessarily in the rail industry, but outside of that as well?
So my father probably was the first person that ever inspired me, because he started off as a tea boy at 14 in a timber company and ended up being a very senior director. Again, left school with few qualifications, and I saw him work his way up. I remember us having absolutely nothing, you know, in terms of money, and no cars, and we never had a TV and everything. And my father was so committed to giving us what we wanted, and I saw him build his career up to become very senior. So he was the first person that I really watched and saw his career develop. But then there was a lady in the rail industry who was quite, again, inspiring and unique, in the sense that when I joined the railway in 2001, she was in charge of the company I worked for, and it was unique for a woman at that senior level at the time. And I remember crossing paths with her at Hull Station once, and I was a guard. I was one of thousands of guards, and she pulled me to one side and just said she'd heard my name mentioned, and you know, I could go as far as I wanted to go. And if ever I needed any advice, she would always be there for me. And her name was Diane Crowther. She is now CEO of HS1. She's had an amazing career, and I've always tracked her career and watched what she's done. And she's a real trailblazer with rail. And she was the first person that really gave me that nugget of, well, if she can do it, then why can't I? You know, I've always thanked her, and she actually makes me smile because she knows that I quote her as being my inspiration, but she genuinely is. And I've always said that if I could have that impact on one person before I end my career in rail, I'd be delighted, because she was a person that really kept spurring me on, even though she didn't know it, because of just the fact that she gave me that little nudge when I first joined the industry.
It's so important, isn't it? Those just words of encouragement from somebody. along the way. We all need it.
You know, she was, to me, she was God. You know, I was a guard, she was God. She knew me at my name. And when I became a manager and a more senior manager, and now as a managing director, I've never forgotten the impact that had on me. And I always try to adopt that with my team and with other people in my business, that, you know, I get to know them as people, and, you know, I know the things that at home might be troubling them, and I want to know whether it's their daughter's first day at nursery school or the dogs at the vets, because they're the things that matter, and that will make an impact on those people. And I value everybody that works in my business, and if I can do just a small piece of reassurance for them and have the impact that Diane Crowther had on me, then, you know, that was one of my first real learnings as being a manager, which I implemented.
I think it counts for so much, doesn't it? Especially when sometimes it feels like we're getting further and further away from each other, especially after the past year. Yes. Now we're having meetings over Zoom and we feel like we're quite separate sometimes. Just to have that personal touch, I think, is an amazing thing.
And sometimes people can't see behind the badge. So, you know, yes, I've got a badge as managing director, but, you know, the good thing about me in my role is actually I've done almost every job in rail there is to do. So, you know, if anyone says to me, you don't know what it feels like to be a guard on a train late at night when there's drunken football supporters, and I can say, well, actually I do. Well, you don't know what it feels like to sit at a desk and plan a train move. Yes, I do. And I don't mean that in a cocky or arrogant way. I just mean I know how difficult it is. I know how hard it is to work shifts. I know how hard it is to bring up 2 children on my own and work shifts, coming in late at night or getting up early in the morning. It's not easy, and I recognise that. And so a lot of the decisions that I make, I refer back to my own learnings from when I was, you know, starting on the front line. I know how difficult it is, and, you know, and that does help me sometimes when people at a more senior level that maybe don't know what that feels like, because they maybe haven't, you know, they've come in at a more senior level. It's often helpful for me to say, well, actually, you know, it isn't very easy getting up on a cold winter's morning at 3 o'clock or whatever. And I do think that helps with when you empathise with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you said earlier, Louise, that your husband might think you work 365 days of the year. You actually have time off.
I do get time off, but it doesn't really feel like it because I love my job so much. So I've now got a granddaughter who is the absolute apple of my eye. I just love her to bits. So Heidi, I'm absolutely obsessed with sport. I go running every day, but my biggest passion is Hull City. So I can tell you a little story about when I was in Sydney. Hull City were playing West Ham United, and in Australia it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And I found the tube and I found a pub in Sydney that was showing the game at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to get 2 trains across Sydney. And I found this pub, and they weren't selling beer, but they were selling tea in a teapot. And at 6 o'clock in the morning in Sydney, I watched Hull City play West Ham, and then I went to work. And I've followed Hull City for over 50 years, through the highs and the lows. And I absolutely love the club and everything about it. And so, yeah, that sport is my big passion, but my biggest passion is Hull City. So we're not doing bad at the minute, but we could do a bit better, I think.
So as a huge diehard Hull City fan, what's your proudest moment as a fan?
Oh, without doubt, the first time Dean Windass scored the goal and we won the game and we went into the Premiership. I think it was sad because I have 2 brothers, and my brothers aren't interested in sport or football. I used to go to football with my dad. Him and I used to go play football in the park. I used to go to football with him every single game at Boothry Park and then at the Cacon. If he'd been there, it would have been brilliant. But it was, I think I was even better than when the children were born, to be honest. It was, I was just on cloud 9. And then obviously we won again at Wembley, and obviously we got to the FA Cup final. And at the time I was working in London when we got to the FA Cup final. I remember walking through the streets of London with my Hull City shirt on and my Hull City scarf on, and a number of people that stopped me on the tube and said, well done, good luck, hope you win. And when we didn't, it was like, oh, I'm so sorry. People say people in London aren't friendly. That's not what I've ever found. They were amazing to me. I've got some great friends that I've still got in London now. But it was unbelievable. I still keep my fingers crossed we get to the playoff finals this year, but I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but we'll see. There's nobody at Hull City supporter than me. I'll tell it, I challenge anyone.
The challenge is laid down. I was brought up a Sunderland fan. My dad was a huge Sunderland fan, and his proudest moment was not when he got married or when he had me. It was when Sunderland won the FA Cup. Yeah. You've never seen a happier man.
Oh, it's amazing. If you go in a drawer at home, I think I've got every Hull City shirt through the years. I buy them, and I only probably wear them once, but I keep them, and they're absolutely my pride and joy.
They're your treasures, aren't they? Doesn't matter when.
Yeah.
We've got one last question, Louise, and it's a bit of a throwaway question. Yeah. But we've talked a lot about your career, we've talked a lot about the rail industry, but I was wondering, if you had a dinner party, what 5 people would you invite? They can be alive or dead, or fictional, real, but who would you have around that table?
Oh, what a great question. So I think the first 2 people will be my mum and dad, because when my parents died, I was still struggling as a single mum. I had no money. They were amazing helping me, but without them, I don't know what I would have done. I would love for them to see me now. They were the people that said, oh, you leave school at 16, have a family, and that'll be it. And I would love to have made them proud. So that's the first 2 people, without a doubt. This is probably going to sound daft, but Steve Bruce. So Steve Bruce was just the best manager in my lifetime we've ever had. And this is my hero. I'd love to talk to him about, how he manages people, how he gets the best out of them, and whether I could learn anything from him. Because I think, football managers are exactly the same as business managers. It's the same principles. It's just a different product. So he's the next person. Amy Johnson. So Amy Johnson is obviously really famous in Hull, but she was a real trailblazer for women, and she was so brave to think that I've flown to Australia, so I know how far it is, and it took me 26 hours, something like that. So to speak to her about her flight in this almost like a balsa wood airplane just blows me away. I just think that's absolutely amazing. And then I think probably one other person would be Nelson Mandela. So I quote at the minute, because of what we're going through at Hull Trains at the minute, Nelson Mandela, one of his quotes is, don't judge me on how many times I fall over, judge me on how many times to get back up. And I've quoted that to the team at Hull Trains because I think it's so relevant. We've had to hibernate the business 3 times so far this year. It's been so difficult for everybody in the business. I'm incredibly proud of them all. And and I think he, when you think what he went through, what we're going through at the minute is difficult, but he got back up and he carried on, and that's what we'll do at Hull Trains. If nothing else I achieve before I end up moving on or retiring would be to get this business back on its feet, and he's a hugely inspiring person, and so definitely those 5 people.
What a dinner party that would be.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I wouldn't eat anything. I'd just be absolutely...
I haven't invited that one. Well, our half an hour is up. Louise, thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant, really interesting, and lovely as always to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
And I'll see you later.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.